How flexible is your bidding tool, what your organization uses? In my experience, many of the tools in the industry are not very flexible. They're fairly rigid, and they're designed with kind of a specific use case in mind. If your pre-con processes kind of fit into that use case, perhaps it works well, but oftentimes we find that they don't, and we're a little bit more agile than the tool allows us to be. So we're forced to use workarounds or and sometimes do rework, and that's of course not efficient. This is an area where I think the eButter bidding module really excels compared to similar tools. It's probably one of the most flexible bidding tools that I've used. I love that you don't have to use it for an entire project even. You can just use it for small scopes or even renovation projects. I had the privilege of working on a historic building renovation in Savannah, Georgia, once where we used the eButter bidding module. The design team had put together this beautiful design for the facade of the building. It incorporated a rather ornate marble balustrade wall, or balustrade if you're French. It's one of the decorative railings at the top of the building. And when the bids came back for that segment of the work, they were way higher than we anticipated. Part of that was due to the high cost of marble and some of the finer details. Well, to make matters worse, we had a really tight deadline to get it turned around because the plans had to be submitted to the Historical Society by Friday close of business in order to get on their monthly reviews, which was a Monday morning. So working directly with the owner, we were able to quickly pivot. They got in the eButter bidding module. They selected that chunk of the scope. They were able to separate that out and quickly send that right back out as an alternate bid to their facade and masonry contractors and subs. They then sent out an addenda right from the system about it, explaining what happened. Hey, we need this in 24 hours, and really quickly took action. Ultimately, Friday afternoon, the bids came back. I think they got back 4 bids, and they were able to select a redesigned vendor that was actually allowed them to keep most of the design intact, which was great. But it was so cool. Historic buildings are a passion of mine. I love them. I lived in Charleston, South Carolina for a long time, so I really fell in love with them. So getting to participate in that project and use eButter, I was working with eButter to work directly with the owner, I think was probably one of the highlights of my career, just because you're able to, anytime you can directly see the impact, of something you do on a project or a process, and the people involved, is just really awesome. So that was really cool for me, and I'm excited to kind of share that experience with you all today and explain some of the features that kind of support that type of flexibility. I'd like to start off today by showing us 3 key concepts that I think are probably kind of the fundamental pieces of what makes this module so cool. The first is the bid package. We all know what a bid package is, but we'll certainly delve into that a little bit more today, talk about some of the nuances. We'll then look at the bid scope as it pertains to eButter. We'll talk about some of the features that it details. And then probably my favorite part of this tool is just the time and effort that's gone into designing really a world-class contractor and owner experience for our users. So we'll look at the bid package first. Bid package and bid scope are often used interchangeably. Those words get tossed around a lot on the job site. They're actually different things. So I just want to make that distinction a little bit more clear for us today, because the tool also makes that distinguishment. So the bid package, we want to think of that as the entire project or the larger scope. That could encompass everything. If I'm doing a renovation project, I'll have probably one, but possibly more than one bid package for that project. However, I will almost certainly have multiple scopes. So we can think of like an MEPF scope, maybe FF&E scope, and then perhaps maybe a landscaping scope, all part of the same package. So that's just important to know when you're looking at it. We fielded a lot of questions in the past about what is the difference and why is it called this, why is it called that. So just think as a package as comprised of one or more scopes. The next one we'll look at is the dates. Bidding dates are probably one of the most important parts of the bidding process. So when you're setting up your bid package in eBuilder, you want to be prepared and bring that data with you. So you want to know some things. For example, when is your pre-bid meeting going to be? Are you going to have one? When are bids due by? Maybe when do you need the scope completed by, and that could dictate that. But there's 5 or 6 important dates that support the bidding process. You just want to have an idea of what those are in advance, because when you set up your bid package, it's going to ask you for that information. Document location. So this you'll see it's highlighted here. We need 2 separate document folders set up as part of setting up our bid package. So this will be done in the document folder structure on your project. It's best to have this set up in advance. You can do it at this time as well, but it's important you have 2 separate folders, kind of an in and an out location. So the bid documents folder is the first one. That is where you'll store all the information that you want your bidders to see. As part of the bidding portal, they're going to get access to see the documents in that folder. That's where you want to put things like any renderings, any designs, any plans you may have. Some early submittal stuff is great to include in there. Really, any information you want your bidders to have in their toolbox in order to submit the bid, we'll place in there. The second folder location is kind of the inbox back to you as the owner. That will start as blank, and then as the bidders attach and include certain document artifacts in submitting their bids back to you, you'll see those come back into that location. So they're separate. There's no commingling between the data. Next, let's talk about the bid scope. So we know what a scope is, but essentially when we say scope, it is a segment of work that is usually comprised of closely related activities. Not always. eBuilder supports a couple of different components around the scope. We have our base bid. You can think of that as your minimum essential requirements. So the base bid is, hey, this is what I need to build. So whether it's maybe we're doing a bathroom renovation, it's going to be all the hardware and fixtures and tile selections. But perhaps I've got a little bit higher budget. I've got a little extra money, or maybe I have a little less money than I anticipated. eBuilder also supports the use of alternate bids. So alternate bids, you can have 1, 2, 3, or more alternate bids. So we may say like, hey, this is what I need to build. This is the bathroom I'm going to design. However, go ahead and give me a high bid, 10% higher in cost. Maybe you upgrade some of the fixtures to gold or something like this. We go from a faux marble to a real marble. And then we say, hey, maybe the bathrooms are somewhere where we save cost. So go ahead and give me an alternate bid C that uses kind of lower end fixtures, maybe has a manual paper towel dispenser instead of the cool Dyson one. So just the fact that I think it supports multiple different options for the same ultimate scope is really cool. And then the third component of the bid scope, of course, is our addenda. You won't always have addenda, maybe you will. But addenda are really any important information that you want to send out to your bidders during the bidding process. So a vendor may submit back to you a question to which you'll respond. We'll talk about the Q&A component in the bidding portal in a moment. But it may prompt you to send an addenda. Hey, we forgot this, or this is an important detail. We just learned this information. Quickly just send it out. And you can do this anytime in the bidding process directly from the module. I think it's really convenient that it's just in one place for you. And my favorite, I think, part of this tool, and I think why it's, for me, different than other tools, is the very clear separation and customized user experiences between the contractor's portal, what we call the bidding portal, and the owner's portal. We'll talk about the owner's portal first. What is the owner's portal? It's your eBuilder instance, right? So when we log into eBuilder, you'll have find our bidding tab across the top. That's where you're going to do your work as the owner. Okay, it's where you're going to set up the bid packages, select your potential bidders, send out the invitation to bid. It's also where it's kind of designed to be kind of a project management workshop kind of around your bidding process. And it's all done right in your eBuilder login. On the contractor side, completely separate login, and they're completely distinct. Okay, so it'll be a separate login as well as a separate URL. I think one thing that's great is the contractors do not need an additional license or anything like that. There's no cost for our contractors or owners for the bidding portal specifically. We can have as many bidders as we'd like. They're going to get a unique code to log into the bidding portal, and that's where they're going to do their work. So that's where they will set up the bid. They'll include any supporting documentation they may have. They can pose questions to you directly in the bidding portal, and those questions will come back to you in the owner's portal, which I think is kind of cool. And your answers will go back, but they're separated, and that's done for safety and security, and also because the user interfaces are kind of really tailored towards that end user's requirements. And then, so we've got the owner's portal, we've got the bidding portal, and then we talk about the final component of the bid, right? It's going to be our bid tabulation or bid review and results. That component is done in eBuilder. So typical bidding process, right? You can imagine we'd set up the bid, we'll send that out to our vendors, we'll get bids back, and now what, right? Now we go to bid tabulation, which is, I think, super cool. It does all the math for you. So I've worked on projects where we get back PDFs, or, it may age me a little bit, but a cardboard box with a bunch of paper where someone, usually project engineer, has got to manually key this in, or maybe the bid manager, somebody in the pre-con department, and they have to type this into an Excel or something like that. None of that. I mean, you don't have to do any of this with eBuilder. So the bids are all going to come back in electronically. eBuilder is going to automatically go ahead and do some tabulations for you and some basic aggregate functions, couple calculations, and you'll see a couple here. Average, high, low. You can see that column there, total cost highlighted green. We can highlight, the low or high bidders is a feature you can turn on. You can actually enable by segment what the highest bid is by line item. Just some really great computations, so you don't have to do them. And the reporting in this area is really strong as well. So that kind of ties up my component here about the bidding experience. Now my colleague Josh Mesa is going to talk about some of the training components behind this, and he's actually going to demonstrate for us a few of the features that I talked about today.
There's going to be a few areas we're going to cover today in our training. The first is going to be how to set up your bid package. And once our bid package is created, we'll go ahead and we'll add our bid scope. And then the last bit is going to be opening up our submitted bids, and then we'll go into the bid tabulation and then finally awarding the bid. So let me go ahead and I'm going to share my screen here. So as Brian just explained, the bidding module, it's an excellent tool for owners to standardize their bidding process, and it's super easy to set up in eBuilder. First, we'll go ahead and navigate to our project. I've gone ahead and created the Avocado Resort and Spa project for this example. And the first step we'll need to do is set up our documents. So again, it's very important that we have two separate folders created, one for the bid documents and then a separate folder for our bid responses. It's also important to note that these two cannot be subfolders of each other. But once this is set up, we'll go ahead and focus on the left-hand side of our screen under the project menu, and we'll go ahead and navigate to the bidding tab, which is going to be this little gavel here. Let's go ahead and click on this. And once here, you'll be able to see all of the packages that have already been created for this particular project. But now if we want to create our own, we can go ahead and head to the upper right corner here, and we have this Add Bid Package button. So the first step in creating our new bid package is to add our bid package details. Let's go ahead and give our package a name. This is going to be for our plumbing fixtures. If we had a bid package description, we could enter it here. And if you need to put any pre-bid meeting, date, and location, that can be done as well. But some important areas to focus on are going to be these required fields with the red asterisks. And the first is going to be your bidding contact. So whomever you choose as your bidding contact, That is going to be your main point of contact for the bidders if they need to submit any questions that they need to respond to. And ultimately, in the end, the bidding contact is going to be the person who will be able to open up the bids and do the tabulation. Next, we'll go ahead and we'll add our start and due date time. So let's say that this bid is going to start today and we're going to end next Wednesday. And these dates too also serve as the window where bidders can submit their bids, and they're also legally binding dates as well, which is a great feature. Coming down a little further here, we can add our bid square footage. So this is a neat feature because once you've got your bids submitted and you've tabulated them, eBuilder will show you what the cost per square footage, which can really help you when making your decisions on who you want to award the bid to. Next, we can choose our bid instructions document. And this is handy if you want to add maybe just a file that your bidders can open up to review any instructions on how they should be submitting their bids. This is where you can set that up. But in order to unlock the full potential of the bidding module, you'll want to be sure that you have this option selected here to allow electronic bid submission. So this is what's going to allow us to enable the bid scope and also the bid tabulation features, which we'll discuss here later on. Let's go ahead and select our bid documents folder and then our supporting documents folder. So the last area that we'll select, and one that I think is one of the coolest features of the bidding module, is the ability to spawn a commitment approval process. So we can go ahead and submit our select our process. And now once the bid has been awarded, then it's going to automatically kick off this process for us. So let's go ahead and save this. And now our bid package is set up. So next, let's go ahead and add our bid scope. We'll go ahead and click on the bid scope tab. And there's a couple different ways that we can add our bid scope here in eBuilder. The first is by clicking the Add Item button here on the far right. And we can add each line item one by one manually if you prefer. But there's a few other ways we can add it as well. We can actually import our bid scope using an Excel file, or you can also have some templates created and saved in eBuilder, and you can apply them using the Apply Template button. So these are some great features if, let's say, that you are an owner who builds several hotels that are, about 150 units each. By having a template, you can apply the same scope across multiple projects, and it can be a real big time saver, as well as keeping the consistency across multiple bid packages in your projects. So I'm going to go ahead and add our bid scope by clicking the Import Bid Scope button. And from here, you'll see that eBuilder gives you the option to download an import template, an Excel file. Now, I've gone ahead and pre-populated this Excel file, which I'll show you here. So this Excel file is really helpful to set up your bid scope, and it really comes in handy because your bid scope is going to be the necessary framework to making your bids consistent. And filling out this template is going to allow us to keep that consistency. It's also important to note that if you're using the feature to spawn a commitment approval process, that you'll need to select your budget line items that each of these bid scope items is going to correspond to. And as you can see here in column P, I've already gone ahead and selected my budget line items. Now let's go ahead and import this bid scope. I'm going to jump back into eBuilder, and let me go ahead and choose that Excel file. And we'll go ahead and click next here. And you'll see here, all my fields have already been mapped based off the column headers of my Excel file. Now let's go ahead and click next. And now we'll go ahead and click the import button. So our bid scope has been successfully imported. We'll go ahead and click finish. And voila, here you see our bid scope has been imported and is ready to go. If you need to delete or edit any of the existing line items, you can do so using these buttons here on the left-hand side. And another great feature is if I click edit here on the top of our bid scope section, we can choose whether this is going to be our base bid or our alternate bid. So again, our base bid could be, what we determined is going to be the spec that's called for. We can choose that as our base bid, but let's say maybe we want to see how much it's going to cost if we use a bunch of high-end fixtures. Then we can go ahead and select our bid scope as the alternate bid if you'd like. Now, let's say that we've created our bid scope here and we've sent this off to our bidders, but then later down we decide to add an expansion to our project that we didn't take into account originally. What you can do is if we click the addenda button here, you can add an addendum and you can send that out to your bidders. So this is great because by adding an addendum, all the bidders will receive an email notification that's going to alert them that an addendum has been added. And if a bidder has not submitted their bid yet, this will require them to check a box acknowledging that they have seen the addendum. But on the other hand, if someone has already submitted their bid, then they'll also be sent a notification where they'll be asked to resubmit their bid, and then again, they'll have to acknowledge that addendum. So this feature really ensures that all bidders have an equal opportunity when submitting their responses. I'm going to go ahead and switch tabs here so we can go ahead and look at another bid package that I've created. And I apologize, I accidentally muted myself. But we're going to go ahead. I've switched bid packages here, and I'm just going to show you a few more of the other features here. So next is our potential bidders tab. So here, this is where you can add a list of the bidders that you think you're going to want to invite to this bid package here. And you can use these checkboxes here on the left-hand side to select the ones you want to invite. And all you need to do is click the invite button here on the right-hand side. And this will send them an invite where they'll be able to access the bidder portal as Brian mentioned previously. But once you've invited your bidders, we'll go ahead and select the invited bidders tab. And this is where they'll be found here. And what's great about this area is if you look over on the right, we can keep track of our status. We can see who has yet to submit their bid, and they could even mark if they're going to even submit a bid at all or not. So you can get a look at that here. Clicking on the bid documents tab. This is again where you'll put any necessary spec information or drawings or things that are going to help the bidders when preparing their proposals. And this will just give you a little preview of what it's going to look like from the bidder's perspective. Next, we've got our questions and responses tab. And this is a great tool, again, because whoever's the bidding contact, bidders can submit any questions they may have, and the bidding contact will be able to see all their questions here. So as you can see, there looks like someone submitted a question asking what color will the shower trim finishes be. We can go ahead and respond here. So we'll say that these are going to be chrome. But what's great about this tool is if you'll notice here, we've got an option to send this response to all bidders. So when we reply to this message by clicking the reply button, what it's going to do is it's going to send this question and response to all bidders, regardless if they sent the question or not. So again, really just provides a real even playing field for everybody, so everyone's in the loop on everything. Now I've gone ahead and sent out this bid package to all the bidders, and everyone has submitted their responses, and the bidding due date has already passed. So let's go over to the bid tabulation tab and open up our responses. And again, the person who is selected as the bid contact, they are going to be the ones who are responsible for opening the bids. And as you can see here, if I click here on the Yes, Open Bids button, it's going to require me to enter my password. So before I do that, I just want to show you real quick, if I open this other tab here, as you can see here, this is another bid package where the bid due date has not passed. And as you can see, it does not allow us to open the bids until the due date has passed. Well, let's jump back to our original package here. So I'm going to go ahead and enter my password in here. And now we'll go ahead and open our bids. And here you go. Now we can see every bidder's response. If I scroll down here, So now we can see every bidder's response for each line item in our scope, and then we can see the total cost. But if we look up here, we have these checkboxes, and these can really help us visualize our data even further. So let's go ahead and select to highlight the low values, and we'll go ahead and show the average low and high spread. And let's also display the cost per square foot. Now we'll need to hit the rerun button here in the upper right portion of our screen. And now we've rerun our tabulation. And as you can see here now, eBuilder has highlighted all of our lowest values. And if I scroll over to the right some, we can see our average low and high spread of each cost, and even the cost per square foot. So just by selecting a few options, you can, again, really get a better sense of the data, and it can really help you and your team make some more informed decisions when bidding your jobs and rewarding your projects. Now, the last feature I'd like to show you today, which is going to be awarding the bid and creating that commitment. So let's go ahead. We're going to head back to the Invited Bidders tab. And let's say now we're going to award this to Dunder Mifflin. So by using this wrench icon here on the right-hand side of my screen, we'll go ahead and select this, and we can go ahead and click the reward button. Now, what's great about this is you'll see here that you can send a message to the winner acknowledging them that they've been selected for this bid, while simultaneously you can also send a message to the other bidders and letting them know, thank you for participating, but unfortunately you were not selected as a winner. And what's even great is right here as we hit send, by hitting send, we can also initialize our commitment approval process. So I'll go ahead and click this now. And now this is going to send the message to our bidders. And as you see here, we've just kicked off our commitment approval process. And what's awesome about this feature is if I scroll down some, here you can see all my bid scope items have been added to my commitment approval. And you can see that my amounts have already been added as well. And if we look over on the left, everything's already been tied back to my budget line items, which we did so in our import bid scope setup. So what's great about this tool is you can see here, it makes it real easy to create your commitment, and all you need to do is fill in the rest of the information on this process here. Let me expand this. And then the last thing we'll just need to do is submit this and send it on its way for approval. Now, I really hope you all have enjoyed this demo of the bidding module today. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it back over to Avi.